They never took us seriously. Not the first time, not the second, not even the third. To them, we were just the primitives of Sol 3, a backwater species with limited tech, fragile bodies, and what they mockingly called irrational emotional volatility. The Nigma Empire had spanned 6 galaxies and wiped out civilizations far more advanced than ours. They thought we'd be easy. They were wrong. The warning came from a defector named Traxon, a thin, bat-faced thing with half his mechanical implants rusted out. He limped into one of our deep space outposts on Europa Station, bleeding silver and breathing like his lungs were on fire. "They're coming," he croaked in perfect English. "You must surrender, or you'll be erased." He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. His eyes were wide, and his voice carried that broken kind of terror that comes only from watching everything you've ever known fall apart. But our leaders? They didn't flinch. They knew what Earth had become since the first contact wars. We weren't the same fractured species anymore, not divided by nation, race, or creed. We were united by one bitter lesson. No one was coming to save us, so we became our own monsters. We gave the Nigma Empire a warning, a diplomatic pulse wave, broadcast across sectors. Turn back. Earth is not what it used to be. They laughed. Their fleets arrived exactly 91 days later. Sleek black dreadnoughts that could silence a moon in a heartbeat. They blocked our sun for 6 hours. A subtle flex. A godlike show of power. But they underestimated what darkness does to humans. We'd prepared. See, what they didn't realize, what they couldn't realize, was that we didn't evolve to conquer space. We evolved to survive pain. Generations of war, extinction scares, diseases we made ourselves. Every time we came back fiercer, smarter, and meaner. We didn't build fleets to impress. We built weapons to destroy. The Nigma opened with what they called a disciplinary strike. 2 fusion rods dropped over the Pacific. One wiped out the ocean's ecosystem, and the other vaporized Japan in a blink. The Earth held its breath. But not for long. The counterattack started from underground bunkers in Siberia and the Sahara. Human-made quantum warheads, coated with living AI, launched from silos no Nigma scan could detect. They were old school and dirty, exactly the kind of warfare the Empire wasn't ready for. We didn't fight pretty. We fought to end them. Within 3 days, we destroyed their outer picket lines. In 7, we boarded their first cruiser. And in 11, we captured High Commander Kurag himself, the monster who called us the Apes with Nukes. We dragged him through the streets of a rebuilt New York, chained, bleeding, and humiliated. We showed the universe something no one had seen in thousands of years, a galactic power, broken by a species that was never supposed to survive. Traxon watched it all from a hidden corner in our command center. He didn't speak much, just nodded grimly whenever another ship fell from orbit. "I told them," he whispered once. "I told them you weren't like the others." We called our campaign the Memory War, because when we were done with the Nigma, there would be no empire, no outposts, no history left of them. We didn't want tribute. We didn't want peace treaties. We wanted erasure, because humanity remembers pain better than peace. And we don't forgive. They say humans are slow to forget, but quicker to hate. After the Nigma's first strike, we stopped talking about peace altogether. Something shifted in the global mind, like a switch being flicked off. We no longer debated morality or diplomacy. We remembered Hiroshima, Rwanda, the gas chambers, and gulags. We remembered colonization, slavery, and every time someone thought we were too weak to matter. Now imagine that spirit, but weaponized and aimed straight at the stars. Kurag, the High Commander, was held in a black site deep below Greenland's icy surface. He'd stopped speaking after the 3rd day. Not because we tortured him. We didn't need to. We just let him watch. Every morning we fed a live feed of his empire's destruction into the glass wall of his cell. First the Zorian outpost went dark, then the trade worlds of the Guris sector, then even their capital station, Nigma Prime. We didn't leave survivors. Not because we were cruel, because we knew. They'd come back if we didn't finish it all. "You're monsters," one of his officers shouted before her execution. "You pretend to be better, but you're just like us." She was wrong. We were worse. We were. Our war strategy was simple. Find, isolate, erase. Our AI systems, codenamed the Gorgon protocols, could mimic Nigma language patterns, forge their own fleet signals, and use their own technology to lead them into ambushes. Their ships, sleek and beautiful, fell to scrap in cold silence. Their commanders screamed as their own protocols turned against them, ships imploding from the inside like gutted whales. Back home, Earth was different. There were no more countries, no more borders, no more debates. The last semblance of old Earth died with the Pacific Ocean. What rose in its place was something else, something colder. The united dominion of Earth. A species reborn under fire. Children weren't taught fairy tales anymore. They were taught resistance tactics, how to disassemble a plasma rifle blindfolded, and how to identify a Nigma war drone by the sound of its hover pattern. Our scientists weren't working on climate recovery or cancer cures. They were working on gravity weapons and orbital blackouts. We learned to speak in the voice of vengeance, and we used it well. On the 37th day of the war, we discovered Nigma's breeding centers, massive biomechanical factories where they cloned their next generation of soldiers, stripped of individuality, pumped full of subservience from birth. We didn't argue about what to do. We destroyed them all. Some said it was genocide. Maybe it was. But no one on Earth cried for them. Because those clones weren't babies to us. They were bombs waiting to grow up. In one of the last intercepted messages from Nigma High Command, a phrase kept repeating in their native code. We should have listened. But they didn't. They had every chance. Traxon had warned them. We'd warned them. Hell, even their own ancient war records told stories of other civilizations whispering about Earth, like a ghost story. A species that always survived. A species that made death a doctrine and turned trauma into tools. By the 50th day, Nigma space was nothing more than a graveyard of sparks and silence. The remaining sectors fell like dominoes. One last fleet tried to hide in the dark regions of space, near a dead star cluster. We found them. We lit that part of the galaxy on fire. And then we stopped. Because there was nothing left. They were gone. Erased, just like we promised. Kurag? He was the last. On the 61st day, we opened his cell door and told him, "It's over." He didn't speak. He didn't scream. He just sat there, broken, looking at the feed of empty space where his empire used to be. "You made us monsters," we told him. "No," he finally whispered, with a hollow smile. "You already were." We never denied it. The war was over, but peace never came. We thought wiping the Nigma Empire from the stars would bring a kind of closure. A cosmic exhale. A moment where humanity could step back and breathe, maybe even heal. But that's not how it went. With the enemy gone, Earth didn't relax. It sharpened its knives. The United Dominion didn't dismantle the war machine. If anything, it grew it bigger, faster, and more paranoid. They said, "If we could destroy an empire, what makes you think we can't destroy each other?" So they built watchtowers. Not for aliens, but for ourselves. AI surveillance orbs floated over every city, every home. Dissent became treason. Questions were a sign of weakness. Privacy was outlawed for planetary safety. They said it was temporary, but power, once claimed, never lets go. People changed too. You could feel it walking down the street. Eyes darted more. Smiles were rare. Conversation stopped when a patrol drone flew by. Victory had made us gods, but we didn't know how to live like anything but soldiers. Kids born after the war didn't even know what stars looked like without debris fields in front of them. Their lullabies were coded in military cadence. Some of them played games pretending to be Nigma soldiers, getting eradicated by humanity, like it was a badge of honor. And then there were the camps. We didn't call them that, of course. We used terms like containment zones or stability precincts. They were supposed to hold leftover Nigma sympathizers, species and traitors who once worked with the Empire. But we didn't ask questions about loyalty. We rounded them up, locked them in isolated moons and asteroid belts, cut off from light or language. We became what we feared. Traxon saw it. He stayed on Earth under surveillance, technically still a prisoner of war. But they gave him books, let him walk outside sometimes. One day he asked to see the ruins of New Tokyo, the blast zone where the Nigma rods fell. I went with him. He didn't say much as he stood in the glass plains where skyscrapers once touched clouds, just stared. And then, quietly, he said, "This place was alive once. You had color, music, spirit. Now it's just quiet." "I like the quiet," I replied. He looked at me the way a man looks at a wolf that's forgotten it ever lived in a forest. "You won the war, but you lost something too." I didn't argue. I didn't care. I was a child of fire. And like many on Earth, I didn't know how to live without the sound of something breaking. But not everyone agreed with what we'd become. A resistance started forming, ironically, human-born. Veterans, thinkers, even a few former generals who believed that victory had turned Earth into the very empire we'd sworn to destroy. They called themselves the Ember Circle. Their symbol was a single burning coal, fragile, but still alive. The Dominion called them terrorists. Raids started. People vanished in the night. Friends disappeared and came back with blank stares or not at all. The Dominion's justification? Instability breeds weakness, and weakness invites war. So we lived in silence, ruled by fear we had earned ourselves. The stars were ours now, but we looked at them like jail bars. I remember the first time I saw one of the Ember broadcasts. It was hacked into the central feed, barely 20 seconds long. Just a voice, low and ragged. We were meant for more than vengeance. We were meant to feel. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Not anymore. But something inside me stirred, like an old memory, buried under rubble and blood. Maybe the war hadn't ended. Maybe it just changed shape. It started with a whisper. One of the Dominion's orbital patrol ships, Valkyrie 7, went dark over Sector 19A. It was supposed to be a routine scan. Clean orbit, quiet zone, no signs of alien movement in over 3 years. When Central Command lost contact, they figured it was a tech glitch, just another aging unit needing a reboot. But then a second ship disappeared, then a third. No distress calls, no wreckage, just silence. The Dominion tried to hide it at first. They scrubbed internal reports, issued fake mission logs, and fed the newsnets a story about spatial interference anomalies. But people had seen the flames through their telescopes. Amateurs, backyard stargazers, kids with hobby kits who tracked falling debris and knew something was wrong. That's when the Ember Circle came out of the shadows. They didn't claim responsibility. Not directly. But another broadcast hit the feed networks the next day. This time it wasn't just a voice. It was footage. A Dominion officer, face bruised, hands bound, seated in a cold steel chair. Behind him, the Ember Circle's sigil, the coal, burned on a cracked wall. The man stared into the camera, his voice shaking. "They're not who you think they are. The Dominion lies. The war made monsters out of all of us, but only they refuse to see it." The screen cut out before his sentence finished. Dominion reaction was swift. Martial law expanded to all 13 lunar colonies. Communications blackouts hit every off-Earth station. AI drones started door-to-door scans, even on Earth itself. Fear thickened in the air like smog. And in the middle of it all, I was assigned to investigate the breaches. My name is Kira. Once, I was a frontline engineer during the Memory War. Built half the weapons that wiped Nigma from the stars. Now, I tracked ghosts, rebels, the same kind of people I used to call heroes. My commanding officer, General Varn, handed me the mission briefing without looking me in the eye. Find them. Eliminate them. Quietly. I took the file and nodded. But something in his voice, cold, tired, told me he didn't believe in it anymore either. My first lead was a station orbiting Mars. It had gone dark for just 11 seconds. Normally nothing. A glitch. But when I ran diagnostics, I found a data echo embedded in the signal logs, like a whisper trapped between code lines. I ran it through a decryptor. It was a message. Kira, you knew this day would come. No source tag, no signature, just my name. And a time, 4:13. At exactly that time, every screen in my ship lit up with a symbol I hadn't seen since the war, an old resistance flag used before Earth's unification, a phoenix, cracked and faded, rising from dust. Then the voice returned. This time unmistakably familiar. Traxon. He was supposed to be under surveillance, monitored, controlled. Yet here he was, speaking across the void like he owned it. You burned the stars, Kira, but the fire was never meant to last forever. The ash you're living in now, that's not peace. That's decay. I slammed the console shut and killed the feed. But his words echoed. Traxon, the traitor who warned us, the alien who bled silver now preaching rebellion? It didn't make sense, or maybe it did, and I just didn't want to face it. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The faces of the war came back. The soldiers who died under my watch. The Nigma child clutching its dead mother on a shattered moon. The cities we erased with a keystroke, all of it returning, not like guilt, but like memory refusing to be buried. I thought we'd done the right thing. But now I wasn't sure there was a right thing. Only survival. And the terrifying truth that maybe, just maybe, the Dominion feared the Ember Circle not because they were terrorists, but because they remembered how to feel. I didn't go to the Dominion command the next day. I called in sick, a move so rare it sent a quiet ripple through my department, but no one dared question it aloud. People were too afraid to look curious these days. Curiosity got you flagged. Flagged got you watched. Watched got you disappeared. Instead, I went underground. Literally. The old metro tunnels beneath New Santiago were abandoned after the war. The Dominion had poured billions into orbital transport, and the cities below were left to rot. But resistance movements? They loved rot. Decay made for perfect camouflage. The Ember Circle's signal had originated from one of the old hub nodes below the Plaza de Luz. It took me 2 hours to reach it. The stairs were half collapsed. My boots crunched over broken tiles and bone-dry puddles. My torch caught faded graffiti on the tunnel walls. Old slogans from another era. One world, one blood, victory through unity, Earth above all. We used to think those words meant hope. Now they just looked like threats. The node itself was buried behind a half-melted security door. I had to splice 3 layers of Dominion encryption just to get through. And that's when I realized something was off. The code patterns weren't Dominion standard. They were mine. Modified versions of encryption software I'd written during the war. Only 2 people alive knew my encryption tags. One of them was me. The other was a man named Callan Dross. We served together during the Memory War. He was the tech officer behind Operation Abyss, the infiltration campaign that sabotaged the Nigma's planetary cores. Quiet, sharp, dangerous as hell. After the war, he vanished, officially dead. But deep down, I never believed it. And now here I was, standing in a bunker built by my own code, breathing air that tasted like dust and data. I pushed through the last doorway and found the first real sign of life I'd seen in days. A camp. About 20 people, some armed, some working on data pads, some just sitting and eating in silence. They looked human. No armor, no Dominion eyes, no steel-lined voices. At the center of it all stood Kalen. His hair was longer, a few streaks of gray showing now. But his eyes? Same as I remembered. Too calm, too aware. He looked up and met my gaze like he'd been waiting for me. "Kira," he said, like it was still wartime and we were back on the battlefield. "You finally came." I didn't reach for my weapon. Didn't need to. "You left. They said you died in the Helios breach." They lied, like they always do. I stepped closer. My voice was low. "Why me? Why now? Because you're starting to see it too." He gestured to the others around us. "They call us traitors. But we're just the last ones willing to feel guilt, regret, pain, and what are you planning? Another war?" He shook his head slowly. "Number the war's already here. You think the Dominion will stop with Nigma? They need an enemy. If they can't find one, they'll make one." "And if I don't join you?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "Then we'll give you safe passage back. No one here forces anyone. That's the difference between us and them." I hated him for making it sound so simple. But it wasn't. He gave me a bunk that night. I didn't sleep. I watched. I listened. I saw how they operated. Low-tech, decentralized, always moving. They didn't use weapons unless they had to. Most of their efforts went into hacking Dominion satellites, breaking through propaganda networks, smuggling families out of containment zones. They weren't terrorists. They were trying to save something the rest of us had forgotten how to fight for. Humanity. Real humanity. The kind that didn't wear polished boots and call executions restructuring. The kind that cried, stumbled, doubted, and tried to do better even after it failed. In the morning I found Callan again. "I'm not one of you," I told him. He just nodded. "Maybe not yet. But I want to know more." He offered me a data drive. On it, footage, reports, personal logs from Dominion leaders admitting to atrocities even I didn't know about. Weapon tests on refugee colonies, thought manipulation programs, even staged Nigma attacks long after the Empire fell, just to justify new waves of control. It made my stomach turn. "You still think we're the enemy?" Callan asked softly. I looked down at the drive in my hand. "No," I said. "But I think the real war never ended. We just stopped noticing it." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The Nigma didn't lose because they underestimated our strength. They lost because they couldn't understand our willingness to become monsters, and now we were still feeding that monster day after day. I went back. Not because I wanted to, not because I believed in the Dominion again, but because someone had to be on the inside. Someone who could see the lies being poured into the world like concrete and know how to crack them. That someone had to be me. I returned to command 2 days later, the same worn expression on my face, the same badge clipped to my collar, the same lie in my mouth. I was on assignment. General Varn didn't ask questions. He just gave me a nod and handed me my next orders. Surveillance scans in the outer colonies. A cleanup crew had gone missing. Likely rebels, he said. "They're spreading faster than we expected," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "Even in places where we gave people everything. Water, tech, safety, they still turn." Maybe, I thought, because they never asked for cages wrapped in silver. I nodded and took the assignment, but every move I made from that point on was split in two. Kira, the Dominion officer, walked the surface, pressed buttons, followed protocols. But underneath, Kira the traitor, the truth seeker, fed information to the Ember Circle, one cracked byte at a time. I passed them updates through encoded data bursts hidden inside solar flare reports. No one reads solar flare reports. They think space is predictable now, but space has always been chaos hiding behind patterns. So did I. Back at the underground camp, Callan taught me how to ghost walk, how to live with two faces and one heartbeat. Trust no one, he said. Not even me. That's how you survive this. I believed him. But survival wasn't what haunted me. It was the guilt. The names on the casualty lists I started seeing again. The colonies marked for sterile containment. The words were cold, mechanical, but I knew what they meant. Mass silencing. Genocide under fluorescent lights. I started seeing it in the faces around me. In my unit, in the commanders, in the techs running the surveillance towers. People were cracking. You could see it. Little things. A soldier taking too long to respond to orders. A data analyst who stares too long at an old family photo. The cracks were growing. And the Dominion? They noticed. That's when they rolled out Project Cleanline, an AI-driven behavior monitor embedded into every officer's neural link. It read your tone, your expressions, even the frequency of your thoughts. It claimed to detect mental fatigue and loyalty degradation. But what it really did? It turned every soldier into a target. I had 2 weeks before the implant rolled out to my sector. 2 weeks before I'd have to let something inside my head, something I couldn't lie to. That's when Callan gave me the mission. There's a Dominion relay base on Io. Cleanline source protocols are there. If we can shut it down, we slow the rollout. Maybe even freeze it. I stared at the map, the defenses, the numbers. This is a death trap. It's a wedge, he said. You jam it deep enough, the whole machine starts to shake. I knew what he meant. It wasn't about victory. It was about stalling. Giving humanity a second to breathe, to ask itself, what the hell are we becoming? I volunteered to lead the strike. We were a 6-person team, dressed in stolen Dominion suits, our ident tags scrubbed, our weapons modified to pass as standard issue. We dropped onto Io under a magnetic pulse curtain, invisible to scanners for less than 12 minutes. Enough time to get in. Maybe. The base was colder than I remembered. Sterile. Not a single human in sight, just drones, AI cores, and command relays humming like a heartbeat made of wires. We split up. I took the west wing, found the core room. There it was, the central data column of Cleanline, humming, waiting, growing. I pulled out the virus Callan had given me, hesitated for just a breath, because I knew this wasn't just code. This was treason. The Dominion didn't forgive. And if they caught me, there wouldn't be a trial. There wouldn't even be a record. Just silence. But then I thought of the footage, the cries, the lies, the cold fire in Traxon's voice when he said, "You burned the stars." I inserted the drive, and the world cracked. Alarms blared instantly. My comms lit up with warnings. 2 of my team were already down. Another shouted, "Extraction's blown." They knew we were coming. But I stayed. Watched the virus crawl through the system, tearing out its eyes, breaking its spine. Cleanline stuttered, flickered, then died. Just for a second. That second was enough. I fled into the storm outside, chased by drones, burning skies lighting the ice around me. I didn't think I'd make it out, but I did. Barely. And now? Now the Dominion knows someone inside helped the Ember Circle. They just don't know it's me. Yet. The Dominion responded the way monsters always do, by hunting what they couldn't control. The Io breach shook them. Cleanline had been their insurance, their leash, their way of keeping the rage they'd unleashed under perfect command. Without it, whispers grew louder. People started hesitating again. Not rebelling, not yet, but pausing, questioning. And in the Dominion, hesitation was betrayal. They didn't declare martial law this time. They didn't need to. Instead, they released the hounds. They weren't actual dogs. They were humans once, special operatives modified beyond recognition, bone-dense, neuro-linked, no speech, no mercy. You don't run from a hound. You vanish before they're deployed, or you die silent. The day after I.O., 5 officers in my division were reassigned. Their quarters were cleared within hours. No messages, no goodbyes. One of them was my friend, Liran. We'd fought together during the siege of Canto Prime. He once saved my life by pulling shrapnel from my throat mid-firefight, hands shaking, face smeared in blood. Now he was gone, just like that. Routine rotation, command told us. But the way our superior's voice quivered on the word routine, we knew. We all knew. I started sleeping with my sidearm under my pillow. Old habit reawakened. The hounds didn't knock. They didn't need keys. Once your name lit up on the system, you had minutes, maybe seconds. And mine was going to light up soon, because the Dominion had found the leak in their system. They didn't know who yet, but they had narrowed it down to 23 officers with unusual access to I.O.'s protocols. I was number 14 on that list. Every step I took after that felt like walking on cracking glass. I didn't meet eyes with anyone. Didn't speak unless spoken to. My smile, when I forced it, felt like a scar. The Ember Circle went dark for a full week. No messages. No signals. No instructions. I thought maybe they'd cut me loose. Then, 3 nights later, I came home to find a data chip hidden in my med pack. No tag, just a timestamp, 3:17 a.m. I waited until exactly then to plug it into my terminal, fingers shaking. It was a video. Grainy, flickering, Traxon, still alive. Older now, eyes heavier. He looked right into the lens like he knew I'd be watching. You think you're alone. You're not. You think they'll break you. They won't, because there's something inside you they can't touch. Not with guns, not with drones, not with silence. He leaned forward, face filling the screen. It's called remorse. Hold on to it. It's proof you're still human. The feed cut out. Just 10 seconds. But it steadied me more than 1,000 speeches. And just in time. Because the next morning the hounds arrived at my base. 2 black ships, no insignia, no orders filed. I watched from the upper levels as they disembarked. Tall, masked, eyes glowing faint red under their visors. Every footstep precise, silent, wrong, like gravity bent around them. They didn't run. They stalked. Within an hour, 3 more officers vanished. No struggle, no gunfire, just names erased from every system. I knew I was next. I had one option left. Run. But running would only confirm what they suspected. So instead, I did something worse. I broke into the Dominion archives. It wasn't hard. I'd helped design half of its firewall systems years ago. I knew where the gaps were, the breathing spaces no one checked anymore. In the heart of the Dominion's capital node, I found what I wasn't supposed to. Footage of the Ember Circle's first major strike. Only, it wasn't a strike. It was a setup. A refugee camp on Luna Base. A sanctuary housing former Nigma civilians, children included. The Dominion had detonated the blast themselves, dressed it up as rebel sabotage, and used it to justify mass containment zones across 6 colonies. They blamed the Ember Circle. But it was them. It was always them. I downloaded the footage. All of it. And then I did what no one expected. I uploaded it to the public feed. No encryption, no firewalls, just raw truth, sent out in the middle of the Dominion's nightly propaganda cycle. It played across every screen. People froze. I could feel the city breathe for the first time in years. And then alarms. They knew. They always knew. But by the time they reached my quarters, I was gone. Out the side shaft, down the old sewage grids, through passageways even the A I had stopped tracking. I didn't stop running for 7 hours. And when I emerged, shaking, blistered, lungs burning, Callan was waiting. No smile, just a nod. "You're one of us now." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because for the first time in years, I knew who the enemy really was. And it wasn't in the stars anymore. It was right here, on Earth. They say truth is the first casualty of war. But when it's the last thing standing, it becomes a weapon more dangerous than any bomb. The footage I released didn't just light a fire. It cracked the Dominion's mask in two. Within hours, protests erupted on Earth's surface cities. On Mars, a supply convoy refused a direct order from command and turned back toward rebel-held zones. In the outer colonies, entire Dominion watchposts went silent, their commanders defecting or vanishing into the black. They called it the Day of Fracture. For once, people weren't afraid to say it. The Dominion had lied. About the Ember Circle, about the refugee bombings, about everything. And they still weren't done lying. I watched their official broadcast from a bunker beneath the old Andes Range. The Chancellor's face filled the screen, gray hair slicked back, voice full of artificial calm. "The terrorist known as Kira Miles," he said, "is no longer a threat. We have secured the source of the misinformation, and we urge all citizens to remain in compliance with Dominion peace protocols." He paused. "We must remain unified against chaos, against doubt." They'd already declared me dead. And maybe, in a way, they weren't wrong. The Kira who once built weapons for them, who followed orders, who believed that safety meant silence. She was dead. What lived now was something else. Something forged in the ruins of truth and lit with the fire of too much memory. Callan and I met with the full Ember Circle command just 2 days later. 29 rebel cells, scattered across moons, stations, dust farms, and even deep-sea bunkers, each one a scar on the Dominion's map. They'd seen the footage. They knew the truth. But knowing wasn't enough. "We hit them now," Callan said, pointing to the Dominion's relay map. "Hard, fast. No more whispers. We bleed them until their silence cracks into screams." Some of the leaders were hesitant, afraid. "They still outnumber us 10-1, a voice said. "They still have the hounds." "They don't have faith," I cut in, "and they don't have fear on their side anymore. That's all they had left, and we just shattered it." We voted. Unanimous. Operation Cinderfall was born that night, a full-scale, coordinated attack across Dominion space. Not just sabotage, not just signals, a message. We would burn their name from the sky, and I would lead the charge. My target, the Dominion's central AI core on Callisto, the brain of their surveillance grid. If we brought it down, Clenline would stay dead. Their drones would fail. Their security networks would collapse into noise. But it was suicide, heavily guarded. No atmosphere. Constant scan pings every 11 seconds. No one had gotten near it since the war. No one but me. Because I knew the original layouts. I helped build them. The night before launch, I sat alone on a ridge above the bunker, watching Jupiter rise, swollen and silent. The sky didn't care what we did. It never had. All our wars, all our screams, they were ants fighting in a burning field. Still, I lit my last message, a pulse signal, one that only Traxon would receive. "If I don't make it, finish it. Make sure they remember who we were." He never replied. Didn't have to. The mission began in silence. No banners, no speeches, just suits sealed tight, breath shallow, weapons drawn. We moved like shadows across Callisto's crust, avoiding pings, using dead satellites as cover. My team was 6 strong. 2 fell before we even reached the outer perimeter. By the time we reached the core's outer ring, it was just me and Callan. We breached the wall. Alarms exploded across the sector. I could already feel the drones coming. "This is it," I said. He looked at me, face unreadable behind his mask. "You sure?" "No," I admitted. "But if I stop now, they win." We found the core, glass and wire, spinning with data, like a heart that had forgotten how to beat. I uploaded the kill code. The virus we'd built over months, hidden in 1,000 fragmented systems. It crawled into the Dominion's brain like a memory, and tore it apart. The lights died. The drones crashed, and across the stars, screens flickered into darkness. We had done it. But we didn't make it out. Callan took a blast to the chest when the hounds burst through the eastern corridor. I killed 3 before they reached me. The last thing I saw was fire and steel and the face of a man I once called brother, broken beneath the smoke. And then, nothing. They said I died on Callisto. But rebels are good at hiding corpses. So maybe I did. Or maybe I'm just waiting, watching. Because empires fall. And if they don't fall, we make them.